David here. I just want to talk to you this morning about a really simple way of thinking about energy and why there's a few myths out there regarding how to lose weight and what is stopping people losing weight. Number one myth, that you need to exercise to lose weight. Okay. Number two myth, you need to eat less to lose weight. These are myths, right? Number three, that it's in your genes. Mum and Dad were overweight, brothers and sisters were overweight, and that's why I can't lose weight. They're the most common myths that are put forward by unscrupulous marketing propaganda campaigns that become dietary dogma or become dogma in the weight loss industry. Exercise more, eat less, and it's in your genes. They're the biggest mistakes that you can make about in your goal to lose weight. And how big is the weight problem in our society? Well, usually the statistics would show that 2 out of 3 adults are overweight. 1 out of 4 children are overweight. So just have a look at the school kids now and how many of them have a bit of a belly overhanging their waistline. 1 in 10 children have features of hepatitis. Okay, this is the early stages of cirrhosis, not due to alcohol, but due to fatty liver disease. So 1 in 10 children is on their way to developing cirrhosis that is clearly visible on ultrasound or CT scanning these days. So that's pretty alarming. So the stats are pretty bad, and so there's a lot of people out there that are confused about how to lose weight. This is all part of a condition that leads to pre-diabetes or insulin resistance, which is part of the disease spectrum called metabolic syndrome. And 1 in 4 people on the planet have metabolic syndrome, okay? Metabolic syndrome. 1 in 4 people on the planet have metabolic syndrome. Look it up. So, what are the diseases that constitute metabolic syndrome? Obviously, visceral fat. So that's someone who has a very high waist to height ratio. The fat is predominantly in the belly region, not in the arms and legs, like a sumo wrestler. That's a completely different type of fat storage as opposed to, say, the pot belly look. So visceral fat, this predisposition, which then causes a lot of chronic inflammation. Okay, so visceral fat drives chronic inflammation. Number 2, we get diabetes, which is preceded by pre-diabetes. Okay, these are just people walking around out there, their doctor saying, no, you don't have diabetes. Actually, you have pre-diabetes. They're just not telling you. The other thing that people get is gout, high blood pressure, hypertension. They get heart attacks, ischemic heart disease, and they get brain attacks, which is called a stroke. Okay? Or what we call CVA, cerebrovascular accident, cerebrovascular disease. There's a couple of other things that can happen from metabolic syndrome, MET syndrome. You can get polycystic ovary syndrome. All right, so they're the real common. Oh, and we can't forget cancer. Okay, cancer is part of the metabolic syndrome. And then following on from diabetes is what we call dementia. Okay, which is sometimes now part of the diabetes spectrum, which we call type 3 diabetes because of the strong association of poorly managed diabetes to have the additional symptom or disease of dementia. So that's sometimes called type 3 diabetes. Okay, so that's metabolic syndrome. And where do we go wrong when we are trying to make ourselves healthy? Okay, I want to just convey this important message. Being healthy should not be complicated. Okay? Being healthy should not be complicated. Right? We would not have become the dominant species on the planet if it was so complicated to be healthy. Think about our fluid intake. Okay? We don't even think about our fluid intake. We just drink when we're thirsty, and we stop drinking when we're not thirsty, when we're quenched. That should be no different to our food intake. But yet, there's all these food diet advice things where you count your calories, weigh your food, macro, micronutrient measuring and monitoring. It's just a load of garbage because we just eat when we're hungry and we stop eating, or we don't eat when we're satisfied, just like we do with our water. All right? Our bodies are pretty amazing in its ability to be able to keep our homeostatic mechanisms in check without needing all this other mumbo jumbo that is so often put out there. Okay, I want to just give you an example of someone who, let's just say, is 80 kilograms. 80 kilograms, okay? And they're pretty lean, the way that our bodies are meant to be, pretty happy. Okay, so this person, let's just say they have 15% body fat. 15% body fat. Okay, now the average Olympian at the London Olympics had around 11 to 12 body, it was about 11 to 14% body fat. So that's an Olympian. So this guy's about 15% body fat, a healthy fellow. He has 12 kilograms of fat on him, which is 1,200 grams of fat. All right. Now we know that 9 calories is equal to 1 gram, right? So in fact, this fellow is storing 10,800 calories of energy. All right. So an 80 kilogram lean individual has 10,800 calories of energy there. He's actually not going to starve, even if he eats nothing all day. There's a lot of energy there. The reason why this fellow is not going to starve is because his metabolism is healthy, and his enzymatic processes and metabolism is able to tap into that. Okay, we can tap into that energy. All right. Now let's think about someone who's struggling with their weight. Let's see. Excuse me. Let's see someone who's struggling with their weight. I do this in pink. Let's just say they're 90 kilos. let's say they're 90 kilograms. A lot of people who are overweight are much heavier than 90 kilograms. And let's say that they're 30% body fat. 30% body fat. So that would give them 27 kilograms of fat, which is 2,700 grams. 2,700 grams of fat. Now, using the same formula, 9 calories equals 1 gram. 2,700 grams of fat equals 24,300 calories of energy. There you go. So an overweight person has 24,300 calories of energy, and it's all an unhealthily overweight person. It's all stored here in his belly. That's our overweight person. So this person remains overweight because their metabolic processes, their metabolic enzymes, or their metabolic processes or metabolism, and the enzymes and hormones that need to be active so that we can tap into this energy. Okay, so we want to be able to tap into it because there's a heck of a lot of energy there. 24,300 calories. We only need about 3,000 calories a day. That's all we really need to survive in a normal active day. Maybe if you were doing something extremely physical, you might need 4,000 or something like that. But look at that. That's nearly 7-8 days worth of energy just sitting on you. But the problem with the person who's unhealthily overweight, he's blocked. The metabolic processes to gain that, to tap into that energy, are blocked because these enzymes and hormones are inactive. So this is the primary pathology. Okay, it's a hormonal problem that stops someone from losing weight and becoming healthy again. And the hormonal problem is insulin resistance. Insulin resistance. Alright, so being overweight and metabolically unhealthy is not a physical disease or a disease of calories or in your genes. It's purely a hormonal disease, and all we need to do to fix up this problem and get these enzymes working again so that they can tap into this amazing amount of energy that's just sitting on them and it's being stored instead of used, is to reverse our insulin resistance. And overwhelming scientific literature, physiological principles that we've known for a very, very long time is, if we're going to improve our insulin resistance, if we need to fix insulin resistance, because this is the primary problem, right? Insulin resistance. If we're going to fix insulin resistance, we have to reduce the carbohydrates. We have to reduce the carbohydrates that drive insulin secretion. Because if we look at a graph of insulin release versus macronutrient intake, if we eat lots of fat, insulin hardly comes up at all. If we eat protein, there's a little bit greater rise. If we eat carbohydrate, insulin spikes very rapidly in response to carbohydrate. Okay? And this is protein, and this is fat. So it makes absolute common sense that if we want to stop this process of insulin resistance happening, because insulin resistance happens when we keep flogging our pancreas to death by making it secrete more and more insulin, having our cells constantly exposed to insulin and then becoming resistant to the effects of insulin, that is a major problem. The obvious solution then is to reduce that and replace it with a bit more protein and a lot more fat. Increase our fat proportions. So in actual fact, the diet of someone who wants to lose weight needs to probably increase to that much fat, a very little bit of carb, it's hard to eliminate completely, and then protein. Okay, and then once you reverse your insulin resistance, so once you get rid of your insulin resistance, then it's not unreasonable that your carb intake can probably increase a little bit more. Okay, your carb intake can increase a little bit more once you eliminate your insulin resistance, because you can regain insulin sensitivity. There's absolutely nothing that stops you regaining insulin sensitivity. But in order to regain your insulin sensitivity, you need to eliminate carbohydrates as much as possible. Maybe down even to as little as 20, 30, 40 grams per day. And if you think about what that means, one apple can contain as much as 15 to 20 grams. One slice of bread can contain as much as 15 grams. So you really are going to be eating a lot more natural fats from animal products, dairy, nuts and seeds, and protein. All right, and that's as simple as it has to be in order to eliminate the hormonal dysfunction that drives unhealthy visceral fat and metabolic syndrome. Don't be fooled by people that tell you need to exercise more, and you need to reduce your calories and eat less. Okay, hope that makes sense.